The vast emptiness of space stretched before the research vessel Horizon its sleek hull gliding silently through the darkness. Commander Ellis stood on the bridge, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. The Galactic Coalition had tasked his team with mapping this remote sector, far from the bustling center of civilized space. "Sir, we're picking up something unusual," said Officer Miller, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Multiple large objects at the edge of the Helios system." Ellis moved to her station, eyebrows raised. "Natural formations?" "No, sir. Definitely artificial. And there are dozens of them." The commander's interest piqued immediately. "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a cluster of dark shapes against the starry backdrop. As the Horizon drew closer, the shapes resolved into distinct forms, massive vessels drifting in perfect formation despite their apparent age. "A fleet?" Ellis whispered, his voice a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Dr. Barnes, the expedition's lead scientist, joined them at the console. "Ancient by the look of them. Those designs don't match any known civilization's architecture." The Horizon slowed as it approached the mysterious armada. The abandoned ships were enormous, bulky metal behemoths with sharp angles and utilitarian designs that spoke of function over form. Their hulls were scarred with micrometeorite impacts and discolored from centuries of cosmic radiation. "Scan them," Ellis ordered. Officer Miller's console beeped as data streamed in. "Primitive propulsion systems, sir. No signs of standard gravitational engines or quantum drives. They appear to use chemical rockets and nuclear fission, technology that hasn't been used in millennia." Dr. Barnes let out a short laugh. "They're practically space dinosaurs. Look at those external heat radiators and fuel tanks. Whoever built these was still figuring out the basics of space travel." Ellis studied the ancient fleet with growing fascination. "Any life signs?" "None, sir. The ships appear completely dormant." The commander made his decision quickly. "Prepare a boarding team. I want to see these relics up close." Hours later, Ellis led a small group across to the largest vessel in the fleet. Their shuttlecraft docked with difficulty, forced to create a temporary airlock to match with the ancient ship's unfamiliar entry ports. Inside, their helmet lights cut through darkness that hadn't been disturbed for centuries. The corridors were wide and practical, built for utility rather than comfort. Every few meters, they passed strange symbols etched into the walls, possibly writing in an unknown language. "These ships must be at least 3,000 years old," Dr. Barnes said, running her scanner over a control panel thick with dust. "Yet the hull integrity is remarkable. Whoever built them used extremely durable materials." Lieutenant Davis, the team's engineer, snorted. "Durable, sure, but look at these control systems. Physical buttons and switches. Not even basic neural interfaces or thought commands. How do they even operate something this complex?" The team moved deeper into the ship, documenting everything with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed amusement at the seemingly primitive technology. They reached what appeared to be the bridge, a large circular room with multiple stations arranged around a central command chair. Unlike modern ships with their sleek, minimalist designs, this room was packed with instruments, screens, and manual controls. "It's like a museum," Ellis murmured, brushing dust from what appeared to be the captain's chair. Dr. Barnes nodded, scanning everything methodically. "A fascinating relic of a forgotten civilization. The Coalition Science Ministry will want a complete analysis." As the team continued their exploration, none of them realized the significance of their discovery. None suspected that these primitive vessels, which now provoked their mild amusement and academic interest, would soon become their only hope for survival. And none could imagine that humans, a species long thought extinct, had created this ancient fleet. For 3 days, the Coalition research team methodically explored the ancient fleet. They catalogued strange technologies, took samples of unknown alloys, and filled databases with images of the peculiar designs. The ships, though seemingly primitive, had become a source of fascination. Marcus Webb, a junior engineer fresh from the academy, moved carefully through the dimly lit engine room of the largest vessel. Unlike his colleagues who focused on the weapons systems or bridge controls, Marcus found himself drawn to the power core, a massive cylindrical chamber taking up the center of the ship. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered to himself, examining the intricate network of conduits surrounding the core. "These power distribution systems are too advanced for the rest of the technology." His scanner showed no energy readings, yet something about the design suggested dormancy rather than death. The core wasn't empty, it was waiting. Marcus wiped away layers of dust from a panel near the floor, revealing a simple interface with physical controls. Curiosity overcoming caution, he pressed what appeared to be an activation sequence. Nothing happened. Sighing with disappointment, Marcus stood and turned to leave, when a low hum began to vibrate through the deck plates. The sound grew steadily, resonating through the massive ship. "What did you do?" called Dr. Barnes over the communication link, her voice sharp with alarm. I pressed some buttons on a dead panel," Marcus stammered. "I didn't think it would actually work." Throughout the ship, systems long dormant began to awaken. Lights flickered to life along corridors. Ventilation systems whirred as ancient air circulators activated. On the bridge, screens illuminated, displaying information in an unfamiliar script. Commander Ellis rushed to the main control room, where holographic displays suddenly projected above stations that had seemed purely mechanical moments before. "It was hiding," Lieutenant Davis whispered, watching in awe as advanced technology revealed itself beneath the ship's rugged exterior. "All this time, we thought it was primitive, but the advanced systems were just concealed." The awakening wasn't limited to their ship. Across the void, other vessels in the fleet began powering up, their systems synchronizing in perfect harmony. What had appeared to be a collection of ancient relics now pulsed with coordinated energy. "Sir," Officer Miller's voice came through Ellis's communicator, trembling with excitement. "You need to see this. The main computer is activating. It's displaying some kind of log entries." When Ellis arrived at the bridge, he found his team gathered around a central holographic display. Streams of text scrolled across it, characters that seemed vaguely familiar yet impossible to read. Dr. Barnes stared at the symbols, her face pale. "Commander, this is Old Earth English, a human language." "Impossible," Ellis breathed. "Humans died out thousands of years ago. They destroyed themselves before achieving significant space travel. Then how do you explain this?" she challenged, pointing to the text. "I studied extinct languages. This is definitely English, just in archaic form." As they watched, the text dissolved and reformed into the modern galactic standard language, the ship's systems adapting to their presence. Fleet designation: Guardian Contingent Alpha. Status: Emergency Preservation Protoxygol. Active. Time in dormancy: 4,782 standard years. Activation Protoxygol. Initiated. Kurai may eroi da diarrhea. Defense against Harbinger return. Harbinger? Ellis read aloud. "What's a harbinger?" Before anyone could speculate, alarms blared throughout the ship. The main view screen activated, displaying a star map with a pulsing red warning at its edge. Alert. Harbinger Signature DTCT. Long range sensors active. Estimated arrival: 38 standard days. Defense systems. INITIA. Ing. The ship shuddered as weapon systems began to power up. Throughout the fleet, massive engines ignited, pushing against the inertia of millennia. "My God," whispered Davis. "It's not just an old fleet, It's a weapon built by humans. Ellis stared at the warning message, a chill running down his spine. Whatever these harbingers were, humans had feared them enough to build this fleet and leave it waiting, ready to defend against their return. And now, after nearly 5,000 years, that moment had apparently arrived. "Contact the Coalition immediately," Ellis ordered. Tell them we've awakened something ancient, and it's preparing for war." The emergency meeting of the Galactic Coalition Council filled the Grand Chamber with tense voices. Representatives from 17 major species gathered around the circular table, their faces illuminated by the glow of the holographic display at the center. The image showed the ancient fleet, now fully powered and arranged in a defensive formation. "This report is troubling," said High Counselor Thax, his scaled fingers tapping against the polished table. "Commander Ellis, are you certain these vessels were built by humans? A species that supposedly destroyed itself before achieving interstellar travel." Ellis stood firm before the council. "The evidence is irrefutable, High Counselor. The language, the design philosophies, they're unmistakably human in origin, and they're far more advanced than we initially believed." "Fascinating, but hardly a matter for emergency session," said Ambassador Lorne, representing the mercantile worlds. "Ancient relics, regardless of origin." The chamber doors burst open. A military officer rushed in, her uniform disheveled, and face pale with shock. She whispered urgently to a council aide, who immediately interrupted the proceedings. "Forgive the intrusion," the aide announced, voice trembling. "We've received an emergency transmission from the outer colony of Nexus IV. They're under attack." The holographic display shifted to show a planet wreathed in flames. Massive ships of unfamiliar design. Black, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, hung in orbit, raining destruction upon the surface. "Who would dare?" growled Councillor Brax of the Martial Confederacy. The room fell silent as the transmission continued. A desperate colony administrator appeared on screen, background filled with smoke and screams. "They came without warning. Our defenses were useless. They call themselves the Void Crusade." The transmission cut to static as a massive explosion engulfed the communication center. "Multiple colonies are reporting similar attacks," the military officer reported. 15 worlds hit simultaneously. "Our defense fleets are engaging." But she hesitated. "Speak freely," ordered High Counselor Thax. "Our weapons barely damaged their ships, sir. The Void Crusade vessels have shields unlike anything we've encountered. The 7th Fleet has already been decimated." Panic rippled through the chamber. The Coalition had maintained peace for centuries, their military technology unmatched throughout known space. To hear of such devastating losses was unthinkable. "Show us these attackers," Ellis requested. The display changed again, showing close-up footage of one of the Void Crusade ships. Its surface was covered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move, as if alive. Energy weapons of impossible power lashed out from concealed emplacements. Ellis felt his blood run cold. Those patterns, they matched descriptions in the human fleet's data files. The harbingers they were warning about. Dr. Barnes stepped forward. "We've managed to translate more of the ancient logs. According to them, humans fought these beings thousands of years ago. A war so devastating that most of humanity was wiped out. The survivors built the fleet as a final defense before they vanished." "Impossible," scoffed Ambassador Lorne. "How could humans have faced such an advanced enemy when they never even joined galactic society?" "Perhaps they did," suggested Ellis. "Perhaps everything we thought we knew about human history is wrong." Before debate could continue, another transmission interrupted, this one from the Coalition's premier military academy on Arcturus Prime. Students and instructors watched in horror as a massive Void Crusade vessel appeared in orbit. Within minutes, defensive shields failed. The transmission ended abruptly. "They're not just attacking random colonies," realized Councillor Brax. "They're specifically targeting our military infrastructure, our academies, our shipyards. This is a coordinated effort to cripple our ability to fight back. High Counselor Fax rose from his seat, his ancient face grim with determination. We face an existential threat. Commander Ellis, this human fleet, is it operational? Fully, sir. And its weapons systems appear designed specifically to combat these attackers. Then we have no choice. Fax looked around the chamber. I propose an emergency measure. We must activate the ancient human fleet and learn its secrets. Our very survival may depend on technology built by a species we thought extinct. The vote was unanimous. As council chambers rarely witnessed, not a single objection was raised. Humanity's ancient guardians would fly again, and none who had laughed at their seeming primitiveness dared laugh now. Professor Reed had not left the ancient flagship's archive room for 3 days. Dark circles shadowed his eyes as he hunched over the holographic displays, surrounded by data streams that flickered with information thousands of years old. As the Coalition's foremost expert on extinct civilizations, he had been urgently transported to the fleet when the Void Crusade attacks began. Professor, Officer Miller appeared at the doorway, carrying a tray of food. You should eat something. Reed barely glanced up. No time. Every minute I spend on basic needs is another colony that might fall. Miller set the tray down anyway. The Coalition fleet lost another battle at Proxima Station. 2,000 casualties. This made Reed pause. He rubbed his tired eyes and finally looked at her. I'm close to something important. These records, they tell a very different story about humans than what we've been taught. On the main screen, images of Earth, the human homeworld, scrolled past. Not the barren, self-destroyed wasteland documented in Coalition historical records, but a thriving civilization with technology far beyond what should have been possible for their era. According to these logs, Reed explained, pointing to translated text, humans didn't destroy themselves in some primitive resource war. They were already exploring nearby star systems when they first encountered the beings they called Harbingers, the same entities now calling themselves the Void Crusade. The screen shifted to show terrifying battle footage. Human ships fighting against the same black, pattern-covered vessels currently devastating Coalition worlds. The war lasted decades, Reed continued. Humans were outmatched technologically at first, but they adapted quickly. They developed weapons specifically designed to counter Harbinger technology, the same weapons integrated into this fleet. Commander Ellis entered the archive room. His uniform rumpled from too many hours on duty. Please tell me you found something we can use, Professor. The Coalition Defense Command is in chaos. Reed nodded grimly. I have, but you won't like what comes with it. The human Harbinger War didn't end in clear victory. The Harbingers withdrew suddenly, for reasons even the humans didn't understand. They simply left. But humans knew they would return someday, Miller said softly. Precisely. Reed pulled up a new display, complex schematics of the fleet's weapons systems. Humans built this fleet as a contingency, using their most advanced technology. But here's the crucial part. The fleet was designed to be activated only when the Harbingers returned. The automatic detection systems were calibrated to recognize their unique energy signatures. Ellis leaned forward. That's why the ships awakened when Marcus activated that panel. The systems were already detecting early signs of the Void Crusade's approach. But there's more. Reed's voice dropped lower. According to these records, this fleet wasn't humanity's only plan. They also established hidden colonies, worlds outside known space where human civilization could continue developing in secret, preparing for the Harbinger's return. A stunned silence filled the room. You're saying humans might still exist? Ellis finally asked. Reed nodded. Not only exist, but potentially possess technology centuries beyond our own. The logs suggest their plan was to develop along a completely different technological path than other galactic civilizations, one specifically designed to counter Harbinger capabilities. Miller looked bewildered. But why hide? Why not join the galactic community? Fear, Reed said simply. Fear that the Harbingers had infiltrators or observers among other species. Fear that their defensive strategies would be compromised if widely known. Ellis studied the star charts appearing on screen. These coordinates, they point to regions beyond Coalition space, uncharted systems we've never explored, because they're surrounded by radiation belts and gravitational anomalies that our standard navigation systems can't penetrate, Reed explained. But according to these logs, those barriers are partially artificial, created by humans to hide their sanctuary worlds. Ellis straightened, a new determination in his eyes. We need to find them. If humans built this fleet thousands of years ago, imagine what they might have developed since then. There's a guidance system, Reed said, bringing up new schematics. It's designed to lead trusted allies to the hidden colonies in times of dire need. And if the complete destruction of the Galactic Coalition doesn't qualify as dire need, Ellis said grimly, I don't know what does. Outside the ancient flagship, the stars gleamed coldly as another distant world fell to the Void Crusade's relentless advance. Captain Taylor stood on the bridge of the Defiant Asterisk, the smallest vessel from the ancient human fleet. Unlike the massive battleships that now protected Coalition space, this scout ship was designed for speed and stealth, perfect for their desperate mission. Navigation has locked onto the guidance beacon, reported Lieutenant Wilson, her fingers dancing across controls that had been incomprehensible a week ago. The system is pulling us toward coordinates beyond the Perseus void. Taylor nodded, watching as stars streaked past the view screen. The ship moved with impossible grace, its engines defying known physics. Coalition engineers had barely begun to understand how these ancient vessels functioned, yet they performed flawlessly, as if recently built rather than thousands of years old. What's our status? Taylor asked. All systems optimal, Wilson replied. The cloaking technology is unlike anything I've ever seen. According to these readings, we're completely undetectable, not just to sensors, but to any form of detection. We're essentially a ghost. Taylor allowed himself a small smile. Each day brought new surprises from these human vessels. What had first appeared as bulky, primitive designs now revealed themselves as technological marvels hiding in plain sight. The Coalition laughed at these ships, he said quietly. Now they're our only hope. The Defiant Asterisk shuddered slightly as it entered the Perseus void, a region of space notorious for strange gravitational effects and radiation storms that had kept explorers away for centuries. Yet the ancient ship navigated these hazards with ease, following a path encoded in its memory banks. Captain, called Engineer Padul from her station. I've been studying the ship's database. These vessels weren't just built for war. They're preservation vessels. There are sealed compartments throughout containing Earth flora and fauna samples, cultural records, even human genetic material. They weren't just building weapons, Taylor realized. They were saving their civilization. After 3 days of travel through the impenetrable void, sensors detected something ahead, a massive gravitational distortion that seemed to fold space itself. It's some kind of gateway, Wilson said in wonder. The readings suggest it's artificially created, a hidden passage. The Defiant Asterisk approached the distortion, and suddenly the ship's systems took over, transmitting complex signals into the apparent emptiness. The void rippled like water, and a pathway opened, revealing a star system where none should exist. Incredible, breathed Patil. They hid an entire star system using space-folding technology. Our science hasn't even theorized this could be possible. As they passed through the gateway, it sealed behind them. Ahead lay a yellow star surrounded by several planets, and in orbit around the second world, a massive space station bristled with defense systems that immediately locked onto the Defiant Asterisk. We're being scanned, Wilson reported tensely. Before Taylor could respond, the ship's communication system activated on its own, transmitting authentication codes to the station. Long moments passed before a response came. Unknown vessel, came a stern voice through the speakers. You pilot a Guardian-class scout ship. Identify how you obtained this vessel. Taylor straightened in his chair. This is Captain James Taylor of the Galactic Coalition. We activated the ancient fleet when the Harbingers, what we call the Void Crusade, returned. We followed the guidance system seeking help. Silence stretched for nearly a minute before the voice returned. Stand by for escort. Any deviation from designated approach vector will result in immediate destruction. 4 sleek vessels appeared, surrounding the Defiant with practiced precision. Unlike the ancient fleet, these ships were clearly of advanced, modern design, smaller, more elegant, yet radiating power beyond anything the Coalition possessed. They've continued advancing, Patel whispered, all these millennia. The station grew larger as they approached, revealing its true scale, a massive structure that dwarfed the largest Coalition installations. As they neared a docking bay, Taylor could see people moving about inside, humans, alive and thriving, their civilization intact. When they finally docked and the airlock opened, Taylor led his small team out to meet their hosts. A group of uniformed individuals waited, led by a tall, stern-faced woman with silver-streaked hair and piercing eyes. "I am Admiral Pierce," she announced, studying them carefully. "Welcome to Sanctuary Station. You've come a long way to find us, Captain Taylor." "The Coalition is falling," Taylor said simply. "The ancient fleet awakened, but it's not enough. We need your help." Admiral Pierce's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in her eyes. Perhaps recognition, perhaps determination. "So," she said quietly, "the Harbingers have returned, just as our ancestors warned they would." The observation deck of Sanctuary Station offered a panoramic view of the hidden human fleet. Captain Taylor stood speechless as he gazed at the massive armada, hundreds of vessels that made the ancient ships look primitive by comparison. These were sleek, elegant machines of war, their hulls gleaming with a strange metallic sheen that seemed to shift colors as they moved. 4,000 years of preparation, Admiral Pierce explained, standing beside him. While the rest of the galaxy evolved along standard technological paths, we took a different approach. Taylor couldn't tear his eyes from the display of power before him. The Coalition believed humans had destroyed themselves before achieving significant space travel. Everything we thought we knew was exactly what we wanted you to believe, Pierce finished. The remnants who stayed behind created that narrative deliberately. Meanwhile, our ancestors established these hidden colonies, developing in isolation with a single purpose: to be ready when the Harbingers returned. The Admiral led Taylor and his team to a large circular chamber where holographic displays showed real-time battles across Coalition space. The Void Crusade advanced methodically, system by system, their black ships overwhelming Coalition defenses with frightening ease. "They're even more powerful than before," Pierce observed grimly. "Our ancestors fought them to a standstill, but barely. That's why they created the Guardian Fleet, the ships you discovered, as a contingency measure." Engineer Patel studied the displays with a scientist's keen eye. "Your technology is unlike anything I've seen. It doesn't follow the same principles as Coalition tech, or even the ancient fleet systems." Pierce nodded. "That was intentional. The Harbingers can rapidly adapt to standard energy-based weapons and defenses. Our ancestors realized the only way to fight them effectively was to develop completely different technological foundations." She waved her hand, and a new hologram appeared, a complex molecular structure rotating slowly in the air. "We call it quantum lattice technology. Instead of focusing on energy manipulation like most galactic civilizations, we developed matter-state manipulation. Our ships don't use shields that absorb or deflect energy. They phase shift to allow attacks to pass through harmlessly. Our weapons don't deliver energy to targets. They temporarily alter the fundamental forces binding matter together." Lieutenant Wilson looked up sharply. "That's why the Harbingers withdrew the first time. Your ancestors found their weakness." "Partially," Pierce acknowledged. "But they knew it was only a temporary advantage. The Harbingers are incredible adapters. They would eventually counter our methods." That's why we've spent millennia developing new approaches they couldn't anticipate. A door slid open, and a group of humans in military uniforms entered. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with a weathered face, gave a crisp salute. "The Council has reached its decision, Admiral," he reported. "We will assist the Coalition. Preparations for fleet deployment are underway." Pierce nodded. "Thank you, General Kane. Captain Taylor, this is our fleet commander." Kane studied the Coalition officers with sharp eyes. "Your people are fighting bravely, but they're using the wrong weapons against the wrong enemy. The Harbingers aren't simply conquerors, they're harvesters. They don't want territory, they want life energy itself." "What do you mean?" Taylor asked. "The patterns on their ships. They're not decorative or cultural," Kane explained. "They're biological technology, living circuitry that processes the energy they extract from conquered worlds. Every planet they take makes them stronger." Pierce activated another display, showing the ancient fleet now defending Coalition space. "What you found, what your people initially laughed at, was our first-generation defense system. Effective, but limited. Now we'll show you what humanity has become." General Kane's expression softened slightly. "Your Coalition forces need to understand. We can't simply give you our technology. It took us thousands of years to develop these systems. Your crews wouldn't know how to operate them." "Then what are you proposing?" Taylor asked. "A joint operation," Pierce said firmly. "Your Coalition provides the strategic framework. You know the territory, the evacuation routes, the civilian populations. We provide the combat power and tactical expertise against the Harbingers." Taylor considered this, then nodded slowly. "The Coalition Council will agree to any terms. We're fighting for survival." "As are we all," Pierce said. "Humanity has waited for this moment for 4,000 years, Captain. We never forgot our responsibility to the galaxy, even when the galaxy forgot us." Outside, the hidden human fleet began to move into formation, an armada of terrible beauty preparing for war. The Coalition Command Center fell silent as the massive viewscreen displayed the approaching Void Crusade armada. 50 black ships, their surfaces writhing with living circuitry, moved in perfect formation toward the Arcturus system, the heart of Coalition space. High Counselor Thax stood rigid, flanked by military commanders from 17 species. Their combined fleets hung in defensive positions, though everyone knew they stood little chance against the enemy that had already destroyed dozens of worlds. "Status of the human vessels?" Thax asked quietly. "The ancient fleet is in position," reported a tactical officer. "But there's no sign of the reinforcements Captain Taylor promised." Counselor Brax growled in frustration. "We've pinned our hopes on ghosts, if these hidden humans even exist." A communication officer interrupted with sudden urgency. "Sir, massive spatial distortions detected at coordinates 227 Mark 089. The view screen shifted to show empty space, suddenly rippling like disturbed water. From within these distortions emerged ships, sleek, lethal vessels that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. Not just a few ships, but hundreds, appearing in perfect battle formation. "My God," whispered Ambassador Lorne. "They came." Admiral Pierce's voice filled the command center, calm and authoritative. "Coalition Command, this is Human Fleet Actual. We have assumed tactical control of the Guardian vessels. Request your forces maintain defensive positions around civilian worlds while we engage the primary threat." Commander Ellis, recently promoted for his discovery of the ancient fleet, stepped forward. "The ancient vessels are fully integrated with the new human fleet, sir. Their systems were designed for this very moment." On the view screen, the human armada moved with impossible precision, splitting into attack groups that flowed like water around the rigid Void Crusade formation. The Harbinger vessels immediately broke formation, attempting to counter the unexpected threat. The battle erupted with blinding flashes as conventional energy weapons from both sides lashed out. Coalition observers watched in awe as the human ships seemed to flicker in and out of reality, weapons fire passing harmlessly through them when they should have been destroyed. Phase-shifting technology. Ellis explained with undisguised admiration. They don't block attacks. They simply aren't there when the energy arrives. The ancient vessels now revealed their true purpose. While appearing primitive externally, they positioned themselves at strategic points around the battlefield, generating massive interference fields that disrupted the Harbinger's living circuitry. They're the key, Professor Reed realized, watching from his station. The Guardian fleet was designed to create vulnerabilities that the advanced human ships could exploit. A Harbinger vessel, larger than the others, broke through the human lines, heading directly for the Coalition command station. Before defensive systems could even activate, 3 human ships intercepted it. Instead of firing energy weapons, they released swarms of microscopic drones that attached to the Harbinger vessel's hull. The effect was immediate and devastating. The living patterns on the Harbinger ship began to dissolve, the black surface turning gray and lifeless. The massive vessel drifted powerless, its systems completely neutralized. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. A Harbinger fleet, which had cut through Coalition defenses like paper, now found themselves outmaneuvered and outmatched by an enemy they had not encountered in millennia. Their quantum lattice weapons target the biological components of Harbinger technology, Ellis explained as the Coalition leaders watched in astonishment. They're not destroying the ships, they're killing them. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The Void Crusade Armada lay in ruins, not destroyed, but neutralized, their living technology rendered inert by human weapons designed specifically for this purpose. Admiral Pierce's hologram appeared in the command center, her expression solemn but satisfied. The immediate threat has been contained. Our long-range sensors indicate the remaining Harbinger forces are already retreating from Coalition space. High Counselor Fax stepped forward, his ancient face showing profound humility. Admiral Pierce, the Coalition owes humanity a debt we can never repay. We misunderstood your species. We believed the stories of your extinction. Pierce's expression softened slightly. Misconceptions served our purposes, Counselor. Secrecy protected our development. But that era is over now. The Harbingers will return, stronger and adapted to our current methods. Next time, we'll need to face them together. Ambassador Lorne, who had once laughed at the primitive ancient fleet, now bowed deeply. We would be honored to welcome humanity into the Galactic Coalition as equals, as teachers, even. Not as conquerors or saviors, Pierce corrected gently. As allies who simply had more time to prepare. As the human fleet regrouped, their vessels gleaming against the starfield, the Coalition leaders watched with new understanding. What they had dismissed as relics had been the galaxy's salvation. What they had thought extinct had been patiently waiting, developing, preparing. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, not with demands or grievances, but with the exact weapons needed when the darkness came.